Luna, the majestic black bear, lay in the soft bedding of her den at the Montana Wildlife Recovery Center. Her heavy breathing filled the air as dawn broke over the sanctuary. Four cubs, tiny, wriggling, and healthy, had already been born, their soft cries echoing in the room. Dr. Thomas Mitchell, a veteran wildlife veterinarian, smiled behind the observation glass. Four cubs, he murmured to himself. That's already extraordinary. The team of wildlife specialists exchanged quiet words of awe. Bears rarely deliver more than two cubs at a time, let alone four. But as Luna lovingly nuzzled her newborns, her body suddenly tensed again. "Is she still in labor?" whispered Sarah, the sanctuary's lead nurse, her eyes glued to the monitors. Dr. Mitchell frowned. "That's not possible." Yet moments later, Luna delivered a fifth cub. The room erupted in soft gasps. Five cubs? It was unheard of. The team quickly scrambled to document the historic moment. Cameras clicked. Notes were taken. This was a once-in-a-lifetime event, or so they thought. Then, the impossible happened. Luna groaned deeply, her massive frame trembling. Her breathing shifted, and the monitors lit up again. "Another one!" Sarah's voice cracked. Dr. Mitchell's clipboard fell to the ground. Bears didn't have six cubs. They just didn't. The room fell silent as Luna gave one final push. But when the sixth cub appeared, everyone froze. It wasn't like the others. Dr. Mitchell stepped closer to the glass, his pulse racing. "What is that?" In that moment, the sanctuary went from documenting a miracle to witnessing something so extraordinary it would challenge everything they thought they knew about the natural world. The sixth cub lay motionless for a moment, slick with birthing fluids, its tiny body gleaming under the observation lights. Luna, exhausted but driven by instinct, turned to her new arrival and began to clean it with deliberate, gentle strokes. Her massive tongue revealed a sight that sent chills down Dr. Mitchell's spine. This wasn't an ordinary cub. "Is that silver?" Sarah whispered, clutching her clipboard to her chest. The cub's fur shimmered with a strange, silvery white pattern, unlike anything the team had ever seen. Most black bear cubs are born with soft, dark fur, an adaptation for survival. But this cub's markings almost seemed to glow under the soft light, as though nature itself had painted it with a brush of stardust. Its size was just as shocking. This cub was nearly twice as large as its siblings. Dr. Mitchell's eyes darted between the newborn and the monitors. Its vital signs were stronger than they should have been for something so small. He adjusted the camera to zoom in, his heart pounding. Then the cub opened its eyes. "No," Mitchell breathed. "That's impossible. Newborn bear cubs don't open their eyes for weeks. Yet here it was, those amber-colored eyes gleaming with an eerie intelligence. They darted around the enclosure, tracking the movement of its siblings and the shadows on the walls. The cub let out a sound, a soft, haunting chirp unlike anything they'd heard before. The noise filled the room, silencing the team. "Doctor, you need to see this," Sarah said, pointing to the monitor. She was pale, her hands trembling. Mitchell glanced at the screen and froze. The cub's paw pads were marked with strange, intricate patterns, almost like ancient symbols carved into its skin by an unseen hand. He had studied wildlife for decades, but nothing in his experience could explain what he was seeing. "Document everything," Mitchell ordered, his voice tight with urgency. "Every detail. This is something the world has never seen before." Luna, meanwhile, showed no hesitation. She gently positioned the cub among its siblings, her maternal instincts treating it as if it were perfectly ordinary. But Mitchell knew better. This cub was far from ordinary. "Get me a geneticist," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This changes everything." The observation room buzzed with nervous energy as the team scrambled to process what they had just witnessed. Dr. Mitchell's mind raced, struggling to reconcile the impossible details. The sixth cub wasn't just unique, it was rewriting everything they knew about bear biology. Sarah stood frozen by the monitor, her eyes glued to the live feed of the enclosure. "Doctor, its movements." Look, Dr. Mitchell turned back to the glass. Unlike its siblings, who squirmed and nuzzled aimlessly against Luna's fur, the sixth cub seemed unnaturally coordinated. It stretched its oversized paws deliberately, flexing its tiny claws as if testing its own strength. Then, with startling purpose, it crawled toward its mother. "Newborns can't do that," Mitchell muttered, his voice tinged with awe. "They don't have the muscle control." The cub nestled beside Luna, letting out another chirp-like cry. Luna responded with a low, rumbling sound, one that was different from the gentle growl she used with her other cubs. It was almost as though she recognized that this cub required special attention. "What do you think it means?" Sarah asked, her voice shaky. Mitchell shook his head. "I don't know, but this isn't just a genetic mutation. This is something else." As the team documented every detail, the room's tension thickened. Questions piled up faster than they could be answered. Why was the cub's fur marked with those strange, shimmering patterns? How were its eyes already open? And what was the significance of the markings on its paws, which resembled ancient symbols more than natural features? Could it be a hybrid, one of the technicians ventured? Mitchell dismissed the idea immediately. Number Luna has been in this sanctuary for months, completely isolated. There's no chance she could have mated with anything outside her species. Just then, the cub let out another cry, softer this time but no less haunting. The sound echoed through the observation room, sending shivers down everyone's spines. "We need answers," Mitchell said, stepping back from the glass. "Sarah, get samples of Luna's blood and the cub's. I want them sent to the lab immediately, and secure the footage. We're going to need every second of it to convince anyone this is real." Sarah nodded, already making calls. "What are we going to tell the public?" "For now," Mitchell said, his gaze fixed on the cub. "Nothing. Until we understand what we're dealing with, this stays between us. But make no mistake, this is going to shake the entire scientific community." The sixth cub curled up beside Luna, its amber eyes glinting in the dim light. To the rest of the world, it was still just another day. But for those in that room, it was the beginning of a mystery that would change everything. As the team worked tirelessly to gather data, the weight of the moment pressed on everyone. Dr. Mitchell reviewed the live footage again, pausing and replaying the cub's movements. It wasn't just its coordination, it was the intent behind every motion. It didn't stumble blindly like a newborn, it moved with purpose. Sarah returned with a tray of samples, her hands trembling. "The lab's already running preliminary tests, but they're going to need more time for the full analysis," she said, setting the tray on the table. Dr. Mitchell nodded, his eyes still glued to the footage. "It's not just its physiology. Look at how Luna reacts to it. She knows it's different." Luna continued to position her body protectively around the sixth cub, shielding it from view whenever she sensed movement in the observation room. The other cubs nestled closely, unaware of their siblings' strange differences. Luna's rumbling calls grew more specific, almost as if she was communicating in a way no one had ever documented. Then came the breakthrough. One of the technicians monitoring the equipment gasped, pointing to the screen. "Dr. Mitchell, look at this!" Mitchell rushed over, his eyes narrowing as he studied the heart rate monitor. The cub's vitals weren't just different, they were extraordinary. Its heart rate was steady, but its rhythm was unlike anything recorded in a bear species. Even more perplexing, its body temperature was running several degrees higher than normal, yet there were no signs of stress or fever. "This doesn't make sense," Mitchell murmured, flipping through his notes. "A newborn shouldn't be able to regulate its body this efficiently, and its temperature—" "Doctor," Sarah interrupted, her voice urgent, "you need to see this." She held up an enlarged image of the cub's paw markings, taken from a still shot of the footage. The intricate patterns were clearer now, almost too perfect to be natural. They looked like they had been carved with deliberate precision, resembling ancient symbols often found in cave paintings or prehistoric artifacts. What is this?" Mitchell whispered, his mind racing. "It's impossible," Sarah said. "But it's real." The room fell silent again as the weight of their discovery settled in. This wasn't just an unusual birth. This cub was a biological anomaly, one that could challenge everything they thought they knew about wildlife genetics. "Whatever this is," Mitchell said finally, "we're going to need help. Call every specialist you can think of, geneticists, evolutionary biologists, Conservationists, they need to see this for themselves. As Sarah began making calls, Mitchell turned back to the glass, watching the cub curl closer to Luna. His scientific instincts warred with a growing sense of awe. This wasn't just a discovery, it was a revelation, and it was only the beginning. By the following morning, word had spread far beyond the sanctuary. The lab results had confirmed what they already suspected. This cub was unlike anything seen before. Calls poured in from leading researchers across the country, all eager to witness the impossible. The first to arrive was Dr. Rachel Wang, a renowned geneticist specializing in wildlife evolution. She stood next to Dr. Mitchell in the observation room, her sharp eyes studying the live footage. "This isn't just a mutation," she said, her voice calm but tinged with astonishment. "This could redefine what we know about bear genetics." Mitchell nodded. "I've spent my career studying wildlife, and nothing has prepared me for this." Rachel leaned closer to the screen, her gaze fixed on the cub. "The markings on its fur, they resemble ancient symbols. That can't be random. Nature doesn't work like this without reason." As they watched, the sixth cub let out another haunting cry, different from its siblings. The sound was sharp yet melodic, almost as if it carried a rhythm. Luna responded immediately with a low rumbling call, positioning her body to shield the cub from view. Rachel exchanged a look with Mitchell. "She knows," she said. "Luna senses its significance." The observation room grew busier as more experts arrived. Evolutionary biologists, conservationists, and behavioral scientists gathered around the screens, each bringing their unique perspective. Some were skeptical, but all were captivated. "This isn't just an anomaly," said Dr. Isaac Rivera, an evolutionary biologist. "This could be evidence of traits we thought were long extinct, or traits we never knew existed." The researchers pored over the data, the cub's advanced motor skills, its heightened body temperature, and the mysterious markings on its paws and coat. Every detail seemed to defy the known rules of wildlife biology. One behavioral scientist, Dr. Evelyn Harper, observed the interaction between Luna and her cubs. "Look at the dynamics," she said. "The fifth cubs exhibit normal dependency behavior, but this one, it's already more independent. It's engaging with its environment at a level far beyond its age." As the day wore on, discussions turned to the implications. Could this cub represent a new subspecies? Was it the result of genetic evolution, or something else entirely? The questions far outnumbered the answers. Mitchell stood back, letting the team debate, his mind spinning. For him, this wasn't just about data or theories. This was about understanding a creature that seemed to exist on the edges of science and mystery. "Whatever this is," he said finally, addressing the room, "it's bigger than all of us. We need to treat this with the utmost care, for the sake of science and for the sake of this cub." By the second evening, the sanctuary's gates were surrounded. Reporters, wildlife enthusiasts, and curious locals all gathered, eager to catch a glimpse of the cub that had become the center of a global mystery. News outlets from across the country were running headlines: "The sixth cub that defies nature," and "A discovery that could change wildlife science forever." Inside the sanctuary, Dr. Mitchell and his team prepared to address the media. The tension was palpable. This wasn't just about sharing the story. It was about protecting Luna and her cubs while balancing the insatiable curiosity of the world. "We can't afford to sensationalize this," Mitchell reminded the team. "This isn't a spectacle. It's a living, breathing miracle." Dr. Wang stood beside him, clutching a folder filled with preliminary findings. "The world deserves to know," she said, "but we need to ensure the narrative focuses on science and conservation." As the gates opened, the reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. Mitchell stepped onto the hastily assembled podium, clearing his throat. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions within. "What we've witnessed is unprecedented. A sixth cub born to Luna, displaying traits never before documented in bear species." He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. "This cub is larger, stronger, and more developed than any newborn bear we've encountered. Its markings, behavior, and even its biology challenge everything we know about wildlife science." Questions erupted from the crowd. "Is it a mutation?" one reporter shouted. "Could it be a new species?" asked another. Mitchell raised his hand for silence. We don't have all the answers yet. What we do know is this. Luna's sixth cub represents a unique opportunity to learn, to grow, and to expand our understanding of the natural world. But above all, we must prioritize the well-being of Luna and her cubs. This sanctuary is their home, and they will be protected. As Mitchell spoke, inside the observation room, Luna was curled protectively around her cubs, the sixth nestled at the center. The silver-white markings on its fur gleamed faintly under the dim light, almost as if it understood the world was watching. As the sanctuary settled into the quiet of another evening, Dr. Mitchell returned to the observation room. Luna was resting peacefully with her cubs, the unusual sixth nestled closely against her. Its silver-white markings glimmered faintly under the moonlight, streaming through the observation window. The atmosphere in the room was heavy, not with tension, but with awe, a shared realization that they were witnessing something far beyond the ordinary. Dr. Wang entered quietly, holding a tablet loaded with the latest test results. Mitchell, she began, her voice low, the genetic analysis is back. It's incomplete. Incomplete? He asked, raising an eyebrow. The results don't match anything we've seen. There are sequences in its DNA that don't align with known bear species, or any species for that matter. It's like we're looking at a genetic puzzle with missing pieces. Mitchell exhaled, rubbing his temples. This changes everything, he said almost to himself. We're not just talking about a rare mutation or anomaly. This could rewrite the way we understand evolution itself. Outside the sanctuary gates, the media frenzy continued to grow. But within these walls, the focus remained on Luna and her cubs. Over the past few days, the unusual cub had begun displaying traits that further baffled the team. It seemed more aware, its amber eyes tracking movement with a clarity that was far beyond its siblings. It vocalized in unique tones, a hauntingly melodic cry that no one could quite explain. Mitchell turned to Wang. Have you noticed how Luna interacts with it? He asked. She treats it differently, not as a burden or an outsider, but almost as if she understands its importance. Wang nodded. It's as if she knows this cub is special, almost like she's protecting it, not just as a mother, but as a guardian. They both stared through the glass, watching the cub shift its gaze toward them. For a brief moment, it locked eyes with Mitchell, its amber orbs shimmering in a way that sent a shiver down his spine. It was as if the cub saw straight through him, understanding far more than it should. Whatever this is, Mitchell whispered, it's only the beginning. And with that, Luna gently pulled her sixth cub closer, shielding it with her massive paw, as if to remind the world that some mysteries are meant to be protected. The news of Luna's miraculous sixth cub spread like wildfire. By the following morning, the gates of the Montana Wildlife Recovery Center were surrounded by reporters, wildlife enthusiasts, and scientists eager to catch a glimpse of the unprecedented discovery. Camera crews set up camp, broadcasting live updates about the mysterious cub whose markings and behavior were already captivating the world. Inside the sanctuary, the atmosphere was intense but controlled. Dr. Mitchell and his team had enacted strict security measures to protect Luna and her cubs from the growing public curiosity. We need to keep this focused on research, Mitchell said firmly during an emergency meeting. The media can wait. This isn't about headlines, it's about understanding what we're witnessing. Meanwhile, calls flooded in from scientists across the globe. Geneticists, evolutionary biologists, and wildlife experts begged for access to the sanctuary's findings. Many were skeptical, suspecting a hoax, but the video footage and preliminary data quickly silenced doubts. The cub's unique features, from its shimmering silver-white fur to the ancient-like symbols on its paws, defied all conventional knowledge of bear biology. Dr. Wang, tasked with managing the flood of inquiries, worked tirelessly alongside Mitchell to compile and distribute detailed reports. We're not just answering questions, she said, scrolling through a growing list of emails. We're rewriting wildlife biology in real time. As scientists debated the cub's origins, theories began to emerge. Some suggested it was a rare genetic mutation, while others proposed a previously undiscovered subspecies. A more radical group speculated that the cub could be evidence of interspecies evolution, possibly even a link to ancient myths of spirit animals. Back at the observation room, the cub continued to defy expectations. In a surprising development, it began to demonstrate what appeared to be social leadership among its siblings. Despite being the youngest, its deliberate movements and alertness seemed to guide the other cubs. Luna, too, seemed attuned to its needs, often positioning herself to ensure the cub was always protected. "We need more tests," Mitchell said, pacing the room. "This isn't just a discovery, it's a responsibility. If this cub represents something entirely new, we owe it to the world to uncover the truth." Outside, the sanctuary gates buzzed with anticipation, but within, the team remained focused. The sixth cub wasn't just rewriting biology, it was challenging humanity's understanding of the natural world.